You may be seated. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Were there any problems over the weekend? Could you simply not resist the urge to discuss the case with anyone or among yourselves? Did you inadvertently or intentionally receive any information from the media regarding this case in any form, whether that's online, social posting, anything like that? Very good. Before we resume testimony this morning, I have to put on the record in the presence of the jury, there have been several inaccurate news media reports about what happened Friday during the court recess. I will not waste the time of everyone here today to correct them. However, I will commend this jury for its courage and sense of civic duty for doing the job they were selected to do. Jury duty is a thankless job, and jury duty in a high-profile case that is being covered by the news media on a daily basis is even more difficult. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I want you to be able to do your job in this trial with the least amount of distraction possible, and I want you to feel safe. While the original request was withdrawn, there is one outstanding request by WCPO for redacted juror questionnaires. As a result of the media's requests during the course of this trial, we have lost a juror. Alternate juror number 4 has opted to remove herself from service due to this distraction. I have decided to amend my previous order and direct the court administrator to not release questionnaires, redacted or not, during this trial. I will instruct and have already instructed the lawyer representing the court to research and recommend to me ways to provide the fullest protection to you and your personal information, even when this trial is over. Let's get back to the important work we were called here to do here today, and I want to thank you again. Also, on behalf of the parties, both the state of Ohio and the defense, they feel the exact same. They've relayed to me that they are so thankful for you agreeing to come back here and serve in the face of the position you've been put in. Thank you. State of Ohio, call your next witness.
Our next witness is slightly out of order. It would be Mike Trimpy. Mike Trimpy.
Good morning, Mr. Trimpy. Before you take a seat, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Very good. Please have a seat.
Good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
First thing I'd like you to do is introduce yourself to the jurors and spell your last name for the record.
Michael Trimpy, Trimpe.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a forensic scientist at the Hamilton County Coroner's Crime Laboratory. I've been working there for about 37 years as a trace evidence examiner. Also, the last few years, I'm the director of the crime laboratory. As a trace evidence examiner, I would analyze small things like hairs, fibers, paint, glass, soil, gunshot residue, explosives, and usually using microscopes, but analyzing these small things for comparison or identification of them.
My intention at this point, Mr. Matthews, is go into his qualifications unless there's some dispute as to his expertise.
There is no dispute. We're stipulating that.
Very good, thank you. You've been qualified and testified as an expert in your field in courts of law. Is that true?
Yes, over 200 times.
And that includes here in Hamilton County, state of Ohio?
Yes.
Now, in this case, did you have some evidence submitted to you by the Cincinnati Police Department regarding the shooting death of Samuel Dubose?
Yes, I did.
And that shooting death would have occurred on July the 19th, 2015?
Correct.
What matters were submitted to you?
They first submitted his gun belt and the items on the gun belt, and then also a flashlight and the driver's side car door from Sam DeBoe's car.
If I could, let me ask you if you can identify a couple of photos, State's Exhibits 22A and B, and ask if you can identify those for the jury.
Yeah, 22A is a picture of the car door with the window, and 22B is another picture of the bottom side of that car door.
I think these are already in evidence. If not, let me ask this. Do they fairly and accurately depict the car door as you saw it at the crime lab?
Yes.
At that point, I would move 22A and B into evidence, Judge.
Any objection?
No objection,
They'll be admitted and published.
And what was with regard to this car door, what was it that they wanted you to look at?
They wanted me to see if there was any transfer of automotive paint from the car door to his belt and the items on the belt.
That would be Raymond Tenzing's duty belt?
Yes,
And to that end, they actually took the car door off the car and brought it up to your office?
correct.
And you had a chance to examine it there, is that correct?
Yes.
Let me ask you this. You understand that the theory behind Officer Tenzing's defense is that he was pulled or dragged? Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And if that happened, could there be some transfer from the car door to items that he was wearing?
which I
Speculation. Rephrase the question. The objection is sustained.
Well, what are you looking for and why are you looking for it?
Well, we always want to look at anything suspicious that, or to answer any questions that they might have. And so I looked at the door to look for specifically scratches, things that might stick out to me as something that might happen in that kind of a story, that he was dragged or came in contact with the door in an unusual way. So I was just looking for scratches, and there was lots of scratches on the door.
Okay. And in that regard, sir, you then look at and see if any of the paint from that car door is transferred to the duty belt or the flashlight or anything like that?
Correct. So under the microscope, I looked at every item around the duty belt and looking for abrasions or scratches, and I found a few on a few of the items, and then specifically under the microscope looking for any evidence of automotive paint.
And assuming you find automotive paint that matches the paint on that door on the duty belt or the flashlight, might that support a claim that in fact Officer Tenzing was dragged?
I don't know that I could say that, but I would think it would be unusual unless something abrasive was happening that you would have actually paint scraped off of a car onto a duty belt.
Okay. At the very least, it would show that there was contact between the duty belt and the door?
Correct.
Okay. If I could, let me show you what we marked for the purpose of this trial with State's Exhibit number 4B, and I'll ask if you can identify that.
Yes, this is our crime lab number is CC 152376. This is item number 19, and it bears my initials on there.
And that's the flashlight that was submitted to you for examination?
Yes.
And did you mark that envelope in some way with your initials and the date that you looked at it?
Yes, again, my initials are there, and then when I resealed the envelope, I initialed it with the date I resealed it.
There's no question that's the same item that you examined, is that correct?
That's correct.
And if I could show you what we marked for the purpose of this trial, State's Exhibit 18, and ask if you can identify that as well. 18, I believe.
Yes, this is crime lab number, again, CC 152376. Again, it bears my initials right up here, and this is item number 18.
And that's the duty belt that you examined?
Yes, inside is is the duty belt with all the items on it.
And again, did you mark that item with your initials and dates so it's clear you're talking about that object in your testimony here?
That's correct.
Now, you indicate that there were scratches on the driver's side door, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you examine the flashlight, States Exhibit 4B, and the duty belt, States Exhibit 8P, to see if those items contain any automobile paint that would match what was on that car door?
Yes, I did.
And could you tell the jurors what your findings were when you examined those items?
Like I said, I found a few abrasions and scratches on a few of the items. I looked inside those. There were 3 items that had some type of material to actually analyze, and when I analyzed that material, it was not automotive paint.
There's no physical evidence then on the duty belt or on the flashlight that would definitively indicate that it had come into contact with that door?
Correct.
Now, did you also have a pair of boots submitted to you for examination?
Yes, I did.
If I could, let me show you what we marked for the purpose of trial in States Exhibit 8Q and ask if you can identify those items.
Yes, again, this bears the crime lab number on this tag that I placed on the boots, CC15-2376, my initials, and this is item 26-1.
And these are boots that you examined in this case, is that correct?
Yes.
And what was the requested, or what were you asked to do with regard to these boots marked as Exhibit 8Q?
Well, I asked for them to submit the boots to look for, specifically for drag marks. I didn't know that I could find anything, and if I did, if I could say that it meant anything, because I don't know if I did find anything, if I would know when it occurred or how it got there. But in trace evidence, we always like to look at everything first under the microscope and see. So I got these boots in and looked specifically for scrapes or drag marks, possibly, and I did not find any obvious abrasions or scratches on it.
So no physical indication on those boots that they had been subjected to dragging on pavement?
Correct.
Judge, can I have a second, please?
Take your time.
Judge, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Very good. Cross.
Mr. Trimpy, were you ever furnished with any of Ray Tenzing's clothing items?
I don't know if the clothing came with the boots, but I was not asked to look at clothing.
Okay. When you were furnished with the car door from the Honda, did you note any dirt on it?
I specifically was looking at scratches, and I didn't note anything of interest. But, you know, in those scratches, I was specifically looking for something that may be from the police officer, and I didn't note anything.
You know that the car had been wrecked on the right side, or on the left side, is that correct?
I suspected it was because some of the scratches looked like that.
Okay. And you were not asked to examine the car door for any dirt?
No.
In your field, would it have been possible for you to determine whether any dirt had been transferred from the car to Mr. Tenzing's uniform pants, for instance, had you been asked?
Yeah, I can always look for dirt.
But nobody asked you to?
No.
Okay. Now, you indicated that you couldn't determine whether there was any paint transferred from that door to the duty belt that you examined, correct?
Correct. I didn't find any automotive paint on that duty belt.
Okay, and the fact that you didn't find any, and what was the purpose of your looking for paint on the duty belt?
I was requested by the police to look for any transfer of the duty belt to the car or vice versa.
And had you found some of that, that would have indicated that there was some contact between the duty belt and the car door, correct?
Correct.
And the fact that you didn't find any does not mean that there was no contact, correct?
Correct.
Would that be correct?
That's right.
And the fact that there wasn't any paint or whatever you were looking for transferred to the duty belt or to the flashlight does not mean that Ray Tenzing was not dragged. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And he did find some scratches on the duty belt and the items that were attached to it.
Yes.
Did that indicate anything to you?
No, I would imagine that a police officer scrapes up against things quite often in their job, so I expected to find some abrasions and things.
Could you tell how recently any of the abrasions were placed on that duty belt or the items attached to it?
No, I can't do that.
Now, you indicated one of the items you tested was the flashlight, correct?
Correct.
And again, you didn't find any transfer evidence on that?
Not from the automotive vehicle.
And would it be a fair statement on my part that it would depend upon where the flashlight was located on that duty belt as to whether or not it would even have an opportunity to come in contact with the car?
Sure.
And again, the fact that there was no transfer evidence that you could locate doesn't mean that Ray Tenzing wasn't dragged, correct?
Correct.
You indicated that the boots that you examined did not have any clear evidence to you that Ray Tenzing had been dragged, correct?
That's correct.
But that doesn't mean that he wasn't.
That's correct.
May I have a moment, Judge?
Take your time.
We have nothing further.
Very good. Any redirects? Very good. Thank you, Mr. Trimpy. You may sit down. You can go ahead and leave that evidence there, please. Is this witness released?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection to Mr. Trimpy being released?
No good.
Very good. You are free to leave the building. Thank you. Stay prepared to call your next witness.
Judge, our next witness would be Cincinnati Police Criminalist Martin Odum.
Very good.
Martin Odum.
Good morning, criminalists. You're going to come around the back there. If you could please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Very good. Go ahead and take a seat and adjust the microphone, please.
Morning.
Morning.
Would you state your name, please, and spell your last name for the record?
Martin Odum, O-D-O-M.
And would you tell the jurors how you're employed?
I am employed by the City of Cincinnati as a police officer, and I'm currently assigned to the criminalistics unit.
And how long have you been a Cincinnati police officer?
Over 27 years,
And how long you've worked in the criminalist unit?
9 years.
What do your duties there entail?
Some of them, because it can be long. What a criminalist does, we respond to suspicious deaths, which could be homicides, suicides, accidental deaths, and infant deaths. We respond to bank robberies. We respond and assist personal crimes with sexual crime scenes. We respond to police-involved incidents. We also assist over 88 tri-state area police agencies, mainly with fingerprints, but sometimes we have mutual aid where they may need us to respond out to their scene and assist them.
Because some of the smaller departments might not have people experienced in what you do?
Correct.
All right. Would it be fair to characterize the nature of your duties as to document a crime scene and to collect evidence from that crime scene?
That's correct.
And if I could direct your attention to July the 19th of 2015, were you working that day, or were you called out to work that day?
I worked that morning and I was off at 3 p.m., but I was on call, so I was recalled.
You got called back in about, what, 6:30, 7 o'clock?
Around 7.
And that was with regard or with relation to a fatal shooting by a UC police officer, Ray Tenzing?
That's correct.
Did you go to the scene up on Rice?
Yes, I did.
And there were other, you weren't working alone, there were other criminalists at that scene?
That's correct.
Do you remember who all you saw at that scene?
Officer Jimmy Pham, Officer Kim Horning, and Officer Stephen Alexander.
Okay. And at some point, while they were on that scene, did you make a determination to go somewhere else?
That's correct. I was asked to respond to University Hospital.
And that would be to see Ray Tenzing?
That's correct.
And he had been transported to University Hospital by another police officer, is that correct?
Correct, but I couldn't say who, because by the time I was there, I was just, yes.
Okay. But you did then go to University Hospital?
That's correct.
And were you there during the time that Ray Tenzing would have been seen by medical treatment personnel at the hospital?
I was, but the doctor at that time was not in the room.
But ultimately, you did come into contact with Ray Tenzing?
Yes, I
Is
did.
he here in court today, just for the record?
Yes, sir, he is. It's
Point him
the
out.
gentleman in the middle of the two attorneys.
I'll stipulate that he's identified.
Thank you, Judge. Did you either take or direct the taking of some photos of Ray Tenzing at the hospital?
Yes, I did.
You actually took those yourself?
Yes, sir, I did.
And if I could approach and ask you to look at 4 photos, they're marked as stage 7A through 7D. Can you take a look at those?
Yes, sir, I did take these.
And are those photos you took at the University Hospital on July 19th, 2015?
Yes, sir, it is.
Do they fairly and accurately depict Raymond Tenzing at the time you saw him at the hospital?
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if these are in evidence, Judge. If not, I'd like to tender them and display them to the jury.
No objection to that.
Very good. They'll be admitted and published.
All right. Let me have you identify first State's Exhibit 7A.
This is Officer Tenzing.
That's so you can identify him as a full facial picture, and that's the way you saw him?
Correct.
The next one would be State's Exhibit 7B. And ask if you can identify that.
That's his left inner forearm, but it's a scar.
Okay. Was there actual blood on it when you saw him?
It was just the way it is here.
The way it appears there.
Yes.
State's Exhibit 7C.
And this would be his knee, left, yes.
It appears to be what I guess is some slight abrasion there.
Correct.
Like a skin knee.
Yes, correct.
Was it actually bleeding when you saw it?
No, sir, just the way it is there.
Okay. And State's Exhibit 7D.
Correct. It's a rear shot of his body area.
And does that photo 7D show any injury to Ray Tenzing?
Not that I see, sir.
All right. And did you see any at the time when you were there and took that photo?
Just the marks or scars that I did an up-close picture with.
Okay. So since there are no pictures of the back, I take it you didn't observe any injuries on Ray Tenzing's back. Would that be fair?
Correct.
All right. Now, in addition to taking those photos, did you recover some clothing, some equipment, and a handgun?
Yes, I did.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about that.
When I first responded to University Hospital and I went into the room, I let him know who I was and what I was there to do. And I told him I was there to take his picture and to photograph any injuries that he may have. I also told him I was there to also collect his clothing and equipment that he had.
Okay. And was he all right with that? Did he understand what was going on and that why you wanted to do that?
Yes, I believe he did.
Okay. Let's start, I think, with 8-0.
Can I ask the question, please? Can I have some gloves? I forgot to bring some.
Jay, we're going to take a short recess. That's all right.
Oh, here we go. Great. Thank you very much, Deputy.
I figured you just kept a big handful of those in your pocket.
I normally do, wrong uniform.
I understand. First item I'd like you to identify as State's Exhibit 8-0. And ask if you can identify that.
It will be his weapon. I did not package it in this package, but looking inside, it is his weapon inside.
And when you recovered it, was it still in his duty belt?
Correct, it was.
So you just grabbed the whole duty belt and all the equipment that was in it?
Correct.
But you did then take that down to your office so that it could be examined and photographed and then transferred to the Hamilton County Coroner's Lab?
Yes, it was.
Okay. I'm going to show you next what's marked as State's Exhibit 8P.
And this is his gun belt, belt keepers, asp, radio, and handcuffs.
State's Exhibit 8Q. You hand me the old, and I'll give you the
Sounds good. Thank you. Yes, and these were his shoes that I had taken.
Going backwards a little bit. State's Exhibit 4B, or I'm sorry, 4B.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What is 4B?
This is his stream light.
That's a flashlight.
Yes, it is.
That actually would have been in his duty belt, just like the handgun, or was it separate from that?
It should be in his duty belt, and it should be a belt. He should have a flashlight holder.
Wait a minute, I'm mistaken. That was actually recovered at the scene, not at the hospital. Am I
No,
correct?
no, this one then. No, this is by Jimmy Pham, so no.
Okay. If I could show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 8R.
Black pants with folding knife and belt.
Okay. And again, you did not perform any examination or analysis. You just recovered them.
Correct.
From your office for photographs.
And I took them back to Officer Burns.
Okay. State's Exhibit 8S.
And this is his police vest with badge.
State's Exhibit 8T.
And this would be his uniform shirt.
And finally, State's Exhibit 8U. 8U.
And this is his black t-shirt.
All those items, along with the duty belt and the firearm, you recovered at the hospital and took to your office for further examination, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, from your office, they would have been available to be taken to the Hamilton County Crime Lab for further examination there?
That's correct.
You don't do all the testing at your office, the test firing of the weapon, the examination of the weapon, that kind of stuff?
And no, that would be sent to the Hamilton County Coroner's office.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Judge, thanks. I have no further questions. Criminal Scouten.
Very good. Charles?
Officer
Officer Odum, when you met with Ray Tenzing, he was in a treatment room at University Hospital, correct?
That's correct.
What time was that approximately?
It was around 21, or around 8:30.
PM?
Yes, it was.
Did you have any conversation with him?
No, I did not.
Did you make any observations about his demeanor at that time?
You're asking my personal opinion.
Yes, sir.
When I went there, he seemed nervous or afraid.
And you observed the injuries that you photographed, correct?
Correct. I asked him if he had any injuries.
And he pointed those out to you?
Yes, he did.
And you didn't discuss with him where they originated or anything of that nature?
No, because I knew that there would be someone to talk to him about that. I just wanted to photograph any injuries that he may have and to collect what I was there to collect.
The equipment and the clothing, correct?
Correct.
Okay, now you were asking, just to clear up so there's no confusion, about item 4B, that was the flashlight?
Correct.
To your knowledge, that was recovered in the middle of Rice Street by Officer Pham, correct?
Correct.
You had nothing to do with that?
No.
And then I think you indicated you collected his duty belt and the attachments there too?
Yes, sir.
And you collected his clothing that he was wearing?
Yes, I did.
You indicated you took his uniform pants,
Yes, I did.
his uniform shirt,
Yes, I did.
his undershirt,
Yes.
his vest that he was carrier vest?
Yes, I did.
Did you take his socks?
If they're in the bag, then I've taken them. There should be a list of everything that I've taken from there. Matter of fact, when I did it, there was a list that I had to leave with the university hospital or with his police department for all items taken.
You took his boots also, correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you take his underpants?
Sir, he had those on. And no, I did not, but if you look through the pictures, it shows that he had those on over under his the gown.
Thank you, I have nothing further.
Very good. Any redirect?
No redirect, thanks, Judge.
Very good. May this witness be excused? Any
Yes,
objection?
Judge.
Great. Thank you, Detective. You are free to leave the building.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Very good. Have a seat and pull that microphone down to you, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Tell us your name, please.
Officer Kimberly Horning, Horning.
How are you employed?
The City of Cincinnati Police Department.
How long have you been a police officer with the City of Cincinnati?
Just about 9.5 years.
How long? What is your current assignment with the Cincinnati Police Department?
I'm assigned to the Criminalistics Unit.
How long have you been there?
3 years.
What specific duties, Kim, do you have with the Criminalistics Unit of the Cincinnati Police Department?
We respond to all suspicious deaths, police-involved interactions, and bank robberies, anything where they think there's a crime scene that we could assist with.
What are your duties when you get to a crime scene?
It varies on the crime scene. I could be photographing, diagramming, collecting evidence, running, in specific to this case, running like a scanner, which is a three-dimensional scanning system.
Do you normally at a crime scene work by yourself, or is there a team of officers that divide up the duties and each do different things?
There's a team of us. Typically, there's a minimum of 2 that go out on a scene, but depending on how big the scene is or what needs to be completed, there could be 4 or 6 of us.
Did you work on July 19, 2015 with other Cincinnati police officers to process a crime scene on Rice Street?
I did.
And is that in Cincinnati, Hamilton County, Ohio?
It is.
And one of the things I believe you did that day at the scene was to prepare a diagram.
That's correct.
What do you look for in a diagram? When you get to a scene, what do you decide what to put in the diagram, what's important or what may not be important?
When we're showing up at a scene, a lot of times we aren't getting as much information as what we'll develop later on. So we're kind of walking in blindly. The diagramming, and in this case, the scanning, is the last thing you do. So at this scene, we helped search for evidence and placard what we thought would be pertinent to the case. And when that's completely finished is when we go in and set up our scans.
What is the purpose of the Leica scanner?
So the Leica scan, it's a three-dimensional scanner. It kind of sits on a tripod, and basically it's a laser scanner that collects data points. So in large outdoor scenes like this, if it helps us take the scan back to our station and make a diagram. Otherwise, I'd be out there with, a tape measure measuring how many feet a placard is to the sidewalk or something like this. This allows us to have an accurate representation of the scene and allows me to make an accurate diagram from there.
When you do the Leica scan, is that just put in one position or do you have to put it in several locations at the scene in order to get the entire scene?
Depending on how large the scene is. So the Leica scanner sits on a tripod and it can basically only see what you can see from that standpoint, 360 degrees around. So if I need to see on the other side of a vehicle that's parked, I need to then move the scanner to the other side. So in this case, we did 9 scans at this scene, kind of up and down the street on Thill and Rice Street.
Let's say there's a body line right here in the courtroom, and you brought the Leica scan to this courtroom to document everything in the room. Where would you set it up in this courtroom, for example?
I would probably set it up a good 10 feet from the body, so it can't see right below it. So there's kind of a circle, just of a blank area that it can't see below it. But if I needed to see a piece of evidence that's behind the jury box, if I put the scanner here, I need to put a scanner over there in order to see behind your jury box. So it's line of sight, essentially, where you need to put it.
And once you get that finished product, from seeing it work, you can actually go on there and look behind the judge's desk, look behind this podium, look anywhere in that scene. Is that correct?
That's correct. The scans, we put them and stitch them together, so then you have one complete scan that shows you, and you can turn it and manipulate it and see anything you need to see back from the scene out now that you've left.
Does that also allow you to determine exact distances of different items on the scan?
It does.
I can show you a couple of items. First of all, State's Exhibits 1A and 1B. Yes, can you identify those?
Exhibit 1A is just an aerial photograph of Vine Street from, I believe it's Hollister down to Thill Street.
I believe these are all
What number is that?
1A. I believe you were mapping a route you were given in this particular photograph.
Yes, I think it's just a Google map or a Bing map of.
1B.
1B is, again, another CAGIS map, and this is more specific to Thill Street and Rice Street.
And I believe this is already happened. And that Thill and Rice is the area I believe you began your actual diagram of what you actually saw on Rice Street. Is that correct?
That's correct. Our first scan was at the intersection of Thill and Vine.
I can show you what the mark identification purposes is State's Exhibit number 1. Can you identify that?
Yes. Exhibit 1 is the diagram that I completed of the crime scene.
And I believe a number of the items on that diagram in particular were a gin bottle and a flashlight that were on the street.
That's correct.
Those are the first photograph, exactly. Is that correct?
Yes.
I can show you State's Exhibit number 2. Can you identify that?
Yes, that's the gin bottle with placard number 2.
It's one of the items on your diagram, correct?
Correct.
State's Exhibit number 3.
Number 3 is also placard number 3 contains the officer's flashlight.
to identify that?
Yes, this was a photograph of 2 and 3, placards 2 and 3, the gym bottle, and a flashlight.
And that kind of shows their relationship to where they are to each other?
Yes.
Just displaying States Exhibit 2K, the gym model. States Exhibit 2K, the flashlight. And States Exhibit 2L. Those are the items on the street. I take it when you get there, all you can basically say is, this is where the items are when you got there.
That's correct.
Don't know how they got there, if they were moved or not.
That's correct.
With reference to your diagram, Kim, could you approach the gizmo over here and explain the different things you are marked on there and the distances between them? How would you have done that this is an evidence that I believe states exhibit number 1 notice?
Any objection?
No, Judge.
Very good. States 1 will be admitted and published.
Go ahead.
So in this diagram, we want to mark, when we're showing up, we basically scan the scene as is. So obviously, you have the officer's vehicle, which is labeled here with number 1. We didn't know if that was where the vehicle was at the time of the incident or if it had moved afterwards. So again, you're just marking evidence that is where it was when we found it. So you just want to go through all items again. So we have 2 here, and that's the gym model that we just showed you.
Let me see if I can, I think you could blow this up a little bit so that yours can see a little bit clearer. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, it's kind of small. Number 3 is Officer Tensing's flashlight. It's right here. Number 4 is damage to the guardrail that was presumably made by the vehicle. Number 5 is the damage here. Number 5 is the front bumper that came off of the Honda Accord. And then number 6 is the Honda Accord itself. And number 7 is kind of placed on top of the vehicle, but that indicates where the funny or tower shell casing was located inside the vehicle.
Inside the car. You also have some measurements on there, is that correct?
Yes.
And what do those, where are they from, and tell us what those distances are?
These are from fixed points. So looking back at the scene, we want to use fixed points so you can see there's 13 feet 5 inches is the width of the driveway right there. They gave you a fixed point to that no parking sign, which would be on the east side of the street, and that's I kind of used the edge of the driveway to draw everything from. If that makes sense. So from the edge of the driveway to the no parking sign, 22 feet, about 5 inches.
Is that from the, as you're looking at the diagram, from the left side of the driveway?
It would be the northernmost point.
Which is the,
Yes. If you're looking at it, yes, the left side.
and you also take a measurement from the southernmost, or as you're looking at the diagram, the right side of the driveway to that no parking sign.
I did not.
And what are the other distances on there?
Then you have the driveway to the pothole cover, and that's 27 feet 2 inches. And then the left side of the driveway all the way up to the guardrail, and that's 131 feet 9 inches. And then I believe they kind of wanted an idea of how far away the vehicle was, but that's kind of as the crow flies. So I don't know what the trajectory of this vehicle hitting the guardrail and where it went, how far it would actually travel. So this is just an as the crow flies measurement, which is just shy of 300 feet, 299 feet, 11 inches.
Just want to clear on the distance from the driveway to the no parking sign, from the part of the driveway closest to Phil Street, which would be on the left or the north side. It's a total of 22 feet and something to the no parking sign.
Correct.
And the driveway itself is 13.5 feet wide.
Correct.
So I take it if you subtracted the 13.5 from the 22.4, you would find the distance from the south side of the driveway.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
On the
Press.
Officer Horning, just so I understand, you don't know where the DuBose vehicle was parked
That's correct.
when this occurred? But you do know that from the southern edge of the driveway up to the no parking zone was 22 and a half feet, is that correct? Or is that from the northern?
The northern edge.
Northern edge, okay.
I would like to hand you what's been marked as defendant's exhibit number 1 and ask if you can identify that for us.
Yes, this was a rough draft when I was, essentially it was created to, it's very similar to the one that you saw, but it has a change in it, if you will.
Let me put it up on the
Okay.
screen here. Perhaps you
Explain
can
it.
step over here and
Yes.
explain the change. Oh, Judge, I'd like to ask that this be admitted.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Very good. Defense one will be admitted and published.
Can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the changes that have been made?
Yes, this was a rough draft as I was creating a diagram. So as I was not only putting the data points in, I was viewing the video from the officer's body camera. And I was making an attempt to put kind of a ghost car. Patrol officers typically would put a car where it came from and then where it ended up. It would indicate with a ghost of a gray car, if you will. So you had an idea of where the incident started and where it was completed. However, in doing this, you also can't tell where the car is parked based on the video. So that's why this was an earlier rough draft versus the final draft that you saw.
Okay, well, I note on there that you've got markings that indicate 4 feet to 10 feet. Is that what that 4 to 10 means?
Yes.
And what was that supposed to symbolize?
So that's the change. That was hypothetically if I had the front of the vehicle as high as this southern edge versus further back here. It was a rough estimate trying to determine whereabouts. Basically looking through that camera, you can see portions of that driveway. So kind of giving a left and right view of that vehicle.
Does that indicate in any manner how much the DuBose vehicle moved?
No.
Does it indicate in any manner how far the flashlight, how far up or south on Rice Street the flashlight was from where Officer Tenzing started?
No, but the flashlight is still number 3 in the picture, but no.
And the flashlight is, again, 22 and a half feet from the north end of the driveway?
That's correct.
And the gin bottle is how far?
I believe, I don't think I gave an estimate on the gin bottle, but I think it was somewhere around 3 to 4 feet from this northern edge.
Okay. And you aren't able to tell how far the distance from the DuBose car then to the no parking sign was when it was originally stopped, correct?
That's correct. I didn't want to include anything that was a guess, so that's why you only see fixed objects like the no parking sign measured, the driveway that's never going to move, that's measured.
May I have a moment, Judge?
Take your time.
Judge, you have no further questions.
Very good. Any redirect? Very good. Is this witness released?
Yes.
Any objection? Very good. Thank you, Detective Horning.
Brian Scouten.
morning, sir. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Tell us your name, please.
Brian D. Scouten, Scowden.
How are you employed?
I'm the Chief Drug Analyst at the Hamilton County Coroner's Office here in Cincinnati.
And when you say drug analyst, what all type of substances did you examine at the coroner's office?
I analyze evidence for the presence of controlled substances or the lack thereof. So we're looking at liquids, solids, tablets, things of that nature, plant material.
Mr. Matthews, again, you stipulating his qualification?
Yes.
I believe you were asked to examine one particular item and possibly some other ones, but one particular item with reference to the case involving police officer Ray Tensing.
That's correct.
If I could show you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 3B, ask if you could identify that.
Yes. It's a piece of evidence that was submitted to our laboratory for analysis. Bears the CC number CC15-02376, item 16, and also bears the same CC number and my initials and date on the seal of the plastic bottle.
What determination were you trying to make about the contents of that particular bottle?
It was submitted and asked for an identification. So basically, I tested it for drugs or alcohol.
And what was the result?
That it was negative for both.
No drugs, and it is not, even though it's labeled a gin bottle, it did not contain any alcoholic beverage. Is that correct?
That is correct.
No further questions.
Mr. Scouten, did you ever determine what was contained in that bottle?
I did not, but a sample was sent to another analyst at the laboratory.
And do you know the result of that test?
Yes, I do.
Would you tell us, please?
She identified components that are found in air fresheners, perfume, or colognes.
And do you have any experience in your career with the coroner's office or with the crime lab with bottles labeled alcohol that contain air freshener?
Not quite sure I understand experience as in analyzing them.
Yes.
No, this would be my first time.
Is there any significance to you that that bottle that's labeled gin contains perfume or air freshener?
No.
Okay. You indicated in response to one of Mr. Pietmeyer's questions that you analyzed items besides the bottle, the gin bottle, correct?
That's correct.
What would that have been?
I analyzed some plant material, and then I inventoried some other stuff that was taken from the car.
And the plant material that you analyzed turned out to be what?
Marijuana.
And did you weigh that material?
Yes, I did.
Did you weigh all of it?
No, I did not analyze all the plant material in the case.
And why not?
Well, if there was going to be criminal charges, we only analyze enough, unless it's requested otherwise by the submitting agency, enough to get the maximum charge. And in this case, it would have been over 200 grams. So I analyzed enough to get over 200 grams.
And do you know what the maximum charge would have been in the state of Ohio for that amount of marijuana?
The objection is sustained.
Sir, what were the other items that you inventoried from the car or you analyzed?
Well, I actually analyzed a cookie and a brownie for the possible presence of hashish. And then I inventoried a bunch of pharmaceutical that was prescribed to a Mr. DeBose, and also some herbal medicines, topical ointments. Those are the things that I inventoried. But I only actually analyzed, other than the plant material in the liquid in this bottle, was a cookie and a brownie.
Okay, and the plant material that you analyzed was contained in a number of different containers. Is that correct?
I believe there was 3 different containers of marijuana, yes.
Is it 3 you believe, or are you sure?
Well, actually, there was 4, sorry.
You have just a moment.
Take your time.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Is this witness excused?
Yes.
Any objection?
No objection.
Thank you, Mr. Scouten. You're free to leave the building.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. State call your next witness.
Next witness would be Kevin Ladic.
Around the back, Mr. Ladic. Go ahead and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Very good. Have a seat. Pull the microphone down to you, please.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
First thing I'd like you to do is to state your name and to spell your last name for Ms. Odum.
Edward Kevin Ladic, L-A-T-T-Y-A-K.
And not long into your testimony, I think the jury will surmise that maybe you're not from here.
That's correct.
Tell us a little bit about your employment. What do you do for a living, sir?
I am the firearms section supervisor at the Hamilton County Coroner's Office Crime Laboratory.
And how long have you been a firearms examiner?
I've been a firearms and tool mark examiner for approximately 34 years.
And tell us what some of your duties at the Coroner's Crime Lab entail.
Basically, as the supervisor of the firearms and tool mark section, I'm going to be managing the section as well as conducting examinations on physical evidence that's submitted to the laboratory for analysis, and primarily that's going to be guns, ammunition, and ammunition components. In other words, fired bullets, discharged cartridge cases, and the guns themselves.
And at this time, I'm about to go into your educational and occupational background, unless Mr. Matthews has some question about your qualifications.
I don't have any questions. I will stipulate the test.
Very good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You've testified how many times in your career as an expert in firearms examination?
I would say at least 200 times in various states, U.S. federal courts, and also overseas.
And that includes here in the Hamilton County Court of Common Pleas, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, if I could, let me direct your attention back. Sometime after July the 19th, 2015, did Cincinnati Police submit some items to you for examination in the shooting of Samuel Dubose?
Yes.
Okay, let's go through first and identify what all they submitted to you. First is State's Exhibit number 23, and I think this actually probably didn't come from the Cincinnati Police, it came from another source, is that correct?
Yes, this would have been a fragment that was recovered during the autopsy, and it's my item number 1-18, or State's Exhibit number 23.
Okay, so the exhibits we're going to talk about, that actually did not come from Cincinnati Police. It came from the coroner, Dr. Karen Lohman.
That would be correct, yes.
And it was something that she recovered during the autopsy and turned over to you for further examination. Is that correct?
According to the records, yes, that would be correct.
And we'll just set that down. We'll come back to that in a second. You were also submitted State's Exhibit 8-0. I'll ask if you can identify that.
I can identify the package based on an orange sticker that I place on it, bearing the case number, item number, initials.
And what is that?
This would be the container for a Sig Sauer semi-automatic pistol.
In .40 caliber, is that correct?
That's correct.
And does it contain magazines, ammunition, that sort of thing?
Yes, it does.
That was all submitted to you together by Cincinnati Police?
That's correct.
And was it represented to you as the service weapon of University of Cincinnati Police Officer Ray Tenzing?
Yes.
I'll ask you to take a look at State's Exhibit 6C, and ask if that was submitted to you by the Cincinnati Police Department.
Yes, it was, and it bears the item number, the case number, and other pertinent information. So it'd be a hat that was submitted for examination.
Okay. State's Exhibit 5D.
And State's Exhibit number 5D, which is my item number 12, which is a discharged .40 caliber cartridge case.
We'll talk to the jurors a little more in a second about your examination, and we'll go through what that is. And finally, State's Exhibit 5E.
State's Exhibit number 5E would be the package for a bullet that was recovered. It was my item number 23, and it was a bullet that was submitted for examination.
All right. If we could, sir, let's start with 8O. 8O, that is what you've identified as a service weapon of Raymond Tenzing, a Sig Sauer P320 handgun and .40 caliber. Can you tell us, sir, and if you want to remove it, this would be helpful, did you test fire this weapon?
Yes, this firearm was examined by myself and test fired a number of times.
And in your test fires, did the weapon operate the way it's supposed to?
Yes, it's a fairly new weapon, or a fairly new firearm, and it operated normally as intended by the manufacturer.
Could you, just for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury who might not be familiar with the operation of a semi-automatic firearm, could you explain to them how that handgun operates?
Certainly, and if I can, I'll take it
Please do. Make
out
sure
of
it's
the
safe,
package.
and then, if you would, show the jurors as you walk them through that.
Certainly. I am checking to make sure it's safe, retracting the slide, and the barrel chamber is empty. So,
Judge, to facilitate this so he's not confined in that witness box, can Mr. Ladic come over and stand in front of the jury so they can all see?
Very good.
remove the magazine.
Take your time. And I apologize, Mr. Matthews, is there an objection to him standing closer to the jury? Thank you.
If you're trying to hold too much, you can use the corner of the table here also.
Certainly. So, in order to operate this handgun, this is a semi-automatic, .40 caliber pistol or handgun. And what we would do is we would actually load the ammunition into this container, which is a magazine. Some people call it a clip, but the correct terminology would be a magazine. And it's actually inserted, and this one's empty, it would be inserted into the bottom of this gun, so it actually slides in and it snaps in. And to load the firearm, you would actually track the slide and let it go forward. And when the magazine's inserted, it's going to pick up a cartridge out of the magazine and insert it into the barrel.
Can I stop you just a second? You said cartridge. For the layperson, are you talking about a bullet or a live round?
A live round of ammunition. Some people call it a bullet, but that's actually the component that's fired through the gun barrel. But for the sake of demonstration, yes, you put these bullets into the magazine, and again, you inserted the magazine into this area of the gun. It actually goes and snaps in. Remove it. And then at that particular point, you're going to withdraw the slide, and you're going to bring it back and let it ride forward. It's going to pick up a cartridge and insert it into the magazine. Now this gun basically it's going to load itself, and so you can fire this particular gun until it's out of ammunition. And then you repeat that with the process.
So a person firing that type of a weapon, after he fires it, doesn't have to cock it manually. The action of firing the first round actually brings that next round up so it's ready to fire again.
Yes, and that's why they call it a semi-automatic pistol, because every time you pull the trigger, it's going to go through these different cycles of operation, and it's going to self-load itself.
Right, now let's talk about what you referred to as a cartridge, because I think that's going to become important to the jurors to understand in just a second. What a layperson might refer to as a bullet, but what you refer to as a cartridge. Can you explain how that's made up and how that reacts when it's fired in that weapon?
Certainly. The ammunition that you fire in this gun, or discharge in this gun, would primarily consist of a brass cartridge case. And that particular cartridge case is going to hold all the components. It's going to hold gunpowder, it's going to hold the primer, which actually ignites the gunpowder when the firing pin hits it. And it's also going to contain the bullet. And the bullet, of course, is the object that's going to be fired through the barrel at its target. So again, we have this cartridge case, we have the gunpowder, we have the primer, we have the bullet. So you have those different components.
Right. And the bullet is actually the nose or the cone of a cartridge, and it's the part of the bullet that disengages and flies down the barrel toward the target. Would that be fair?
Yes, some people call it a projectile, but typically we're going to call it a bullet, and that's going to be what you fire at your target, wherever that target is.
All right. And it flies at very high velocity, is that correct?
Yes.
Too fast to see.
Yes, typically in a case like this, you're probably looking for its caliber and its type of ammunition, somewhere around 1,000 feet a second.
What's the bullet made of?
Basically, it's going to be a jacketed, copper jacketed bullet with a lead or lead center, so it gives it some weight.
So it's lead on the inside, but it has another metallic part surrounding it, the jacket.
Yes, and that's the typical makeup of most particular bullets.
Then when that fires down the barrel, the back part of a cartridge is then grabbed and ejected out the side or the top of the firearm. Is that correct?
Yes, again, because it's a semi-automatic handgun, it's got some parts on it, it's got something called an extractor of the hook, it's also got an injector, so it's designed, it's produced, it's manufactured to not only discharge that cartridge, and then when that bullet's fired through the barrel, it's going to go out, then you have the remaining cartridge case. And that gun is designed to basically grab that cartridge case and eject it or throw it away from the gun. So it can pick up another live round of ammunition or another cartridge and load it back in the barrel so you can repeat that process.
And obviously that cartridge casing doesn't fly out the side or the top of that weapon nearly as fast as the bullet or projectile flies down the barrel.
Certainly.
Okay, and is there some general idea? I know you can't really tell exactly how far they fly or where they go, but what's typical in a handgun such as this and this type of ammunition that you examine?
I did not do an ejection pattern test on this gun, so I can't tell you exactly, but typically it's going to eject it rearward to the right. So maybe a few feet, it depends on how you're holding the gun. There's a lot of different factors. If you're pointing the gun one direction, it may change where the cartridge case is going to rank dramatically.
Okay.
If you tip it out, tip it down, basically a few feet, usually rearward to the right.
Okay. And when you do a crime scene, if you suspect a semi-automatic handgun was used at that crime scene, one of the things you'll look for is the cartridge casings that are ejected. Is that correct?
That's correct.
They're certainly easier to find at a scene than the bullet or projectile.
They can be, depending on the crime scene.
Okay. All right, if you have a seat, thank you. I think that's going to be helpful to what we're going to be talking about. With regard to the testimony that you've just given, sir, you did test fire that .40 caliber handgun, states 8.0, correct?
Yes, I test fired it, so I would have some test fired components for comparison, as well as for some distance determination.
And you did determine it to be operable. It did work just the way it's supposed to, as you've described that for the jurors here today.
Yes, it's in like new condition. It's functioning as intended.
And in your estimation and opinion, is it in fact a deadly weapon? That is an instrument, device, or thing that's capable of causing or inflicting death?
Like any handgun, firing a modern cartridge, yes, you could say that.
Okay. Do you have State's Exhibit 23 in front of you? I believe that was the bullet jacket from the autopsy.
Yes, I do.
All right, now, as you've just explained, that jacket would have been the metallic covering on the bullet or the projectile that flew down the barrel?
Yes. State's Exhibit number 23, however, is a small fragment of that jacket material.
Just a very small portion of it?
Yes.
And it's not unusual when a projectile strikes something that jacket breaks or fragments or comes off and we find sometimes pieces of it.
It's very normal, yes.
Now, let me ask you this. If you have a weapon to compare it to, is it theoretically possible to find a bullet jacket, the part that covers that projectile, and test it, examine it, and to tell if it was fired in a particular weapon?
Yes, we do that examination routinely in the laboratory. It's a very common request we get. Covered bullet, can we match it back or identify it back to a specific firearm that's submitted for examination?
Now, my question was, is it theoretically possible, but can you do it in every single case?
Not every case. Sometimes the bullets are too damaged.
Okay. What are the factors in determining whether you can make such an identification?
There's a number of factors. It depends on how well the bullets, when they're fired, how well they engrave. In other words, they're being squeezed through these gun barrels. And as they get squeezed through the gun barrel, they're going to actually contact what we call rifling, or markings within the gun barrel that basically were designed to put a spin on the bullet and give the bullet stability and accuracy. But forensically, they provide us a lot of information. And so how that bullet interacts with that barrel's factor, the actual surface material of the bullet in and of itself. There's a number of factors, again, the damage, but it's not an uncommon or not, I mean, it's a routine examination for us to compare bullets to guns.
All right. And the reason I ask that, because in CSI, the local popular crime drama, they can always make an identification. In the real world, you can't, although you try. Would that be fair?
That would be fair, yes.
In this case, did you look at State's Exhibit number 23, that bullet jacket from the autopsy? Did you compare it with your test fires, and did you try to see if you could make some kind of an identification of it and tie it back to that gun, 8-0?
Yes, it's a very small fragment, what appeared to have some rifling marks on it. In my laboratory report, I basically stated that it was of limited value for examination or for comparison. So on the particular fragment in and of itself, wasn't able to do much.
Okay, just able to tell what it was?
Yes, it's a jacket fragment, that's correct.
If you could, let's turn your attention now to State's Exhibit 5E, and that's, I think, the bullet that was submitted by Cincinnati Police Department.
Yes.
And again, that, so the jurors are refresh their memory, that's the part of the cartridge that flies down the barrel and it is aimed toward the target. Am I correct?
Yes.
As it flies down the barrel, you talked about it being marked inside the barrel. And I've heard that that's like a quarterback trying to put a spiral on a football so that it flies straight and true. Is that a good comparison?
That's a good analogy, yes. Basically, the rifling, if you look at it, it's actually going to be rotating inside of a gun barrel, or the lands and the grooves, the channels that are cut away. If you look at them, they actually appear to rotate. And the reason they do that is so when that bullet's fired through that gun barrel and they contact these rifling impressions, it's going to force the bullet to actually rotate or spin. And by spinning the bullet, you give the bullet stability and therefore accuracy. So most of your modern guns, other than shotguns, are going to have, they're going to have rifling because we want to spin the bullet to give that bullet accuracy. And then again, forensically, it gives us a lot of information.
All right, that's my next question. Is it theoretically possible for you to look at a bullet that's recovered at a crime scene or from an autopsy or whatever, and look at the markings made on that bullet and to say whether it was fired from a particular gun?
Yes, that's a routine examination in the laboratory. Oftentimes, we're able to positively identify a bullet back to a specific firearm, and sometimes we can actually eliminate a bullet as having been fired from a specific firearm based on the rifling characteristics. So it's a matter of analysis, microscopic comparisons of the submitted bullet to a test-fired bullet that we would fire in the gun.
And in this case, you've indicated that you did test fires of the handgun 8.0. Did you use the ammunition that was submitted with the handgun, that is the ammunition from Officer Tenzing?
Yes, I did.
And why do you try to use the same ammo?
I did two different examinations in this particular case. I did microscopic comparisons as well as gunshot distance determination. Excuse me. So I wanted to use the ammunition that was submitted.
Would that give you a better comparison of your test fires and the bullet or cartridge case that was submitted?
Yes, that would certainly give you the most ideal, I guess, comparison, basically matching what was recovered.
And in this case, when you looked at State's Exhibit 5E, the spent bullet that was found in a radio in Samuel Dubos's car, and compared it with the test fires you fired in the Sig Sauer P320 handgun, what findings did you make?
And again, it's a finding that I stated in my laboratory report, and what I found is that State's Exhibit number 5-E, or my item number 23, I was able to positively identify it as having been fired from the Sig Sauer pistol, State's Exhibit number 8-0.
So that handgun fired that bullet through its barrel?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, let's move to State's Exhibit 5D. This was the cartridge casing that was found in the vehicle and submitted to you. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And again, for the jurors' refreshment of them, this is the part of the cartridge that is ejected as the bullet is fired. Is it correct that when they separate, this is ejected out of the side or the top of the weapon?
It's the metallic casing, yes, that's being extracted or thrown out of the gun after it's been discharged or fired.
Now, it's not traveling down the barrel, so the barrel's not marking it. Is there a way you can look at markings on this cartridge casing that's ejected and say whether it was fired in and ejected from a particular weapon?
Yes, there's a number of markings that are placed on this cartridge case when it's discharged in a gun, and those marks can consist of firing pin impression marks and breech face marks, and you can have those extractor marks, ejector marks, chamber marks, but basically there's a variety of markings that forensically give us a lot of information, and in this particular case I did do a comparison of this cartridge case back to the gun.
All right, and you're examining that cartridge case, the one that was submitted from inside Samuel Dubos's vehicle, I think in the backseat floorboard. You're comparing that with test fires you did from that gun using the same type of ammunition?
Yes, it's a microscopic comparison.
And what findings did you make when you made that comparison?
Again, as in the bullet, I was able to take the cartridge case and do a microscopic comparison and positively identify the cartridge case as having been discharged in State's Exhibit number 8-0, the Sig Sauer pistol.
That handgun fired and ejected that cartridge casing State's 5D, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, now finally, let me ask you if you'll look at State's Exhibit 6C and tell the jurors what that is.
Basically, it's a red cap that was submitted for examination, and it contains an area of bullet damage.
I think it's contained in a plastic bag. Could you remove that and show the jurors?
Certainly, this is the hat that I examined.
And it bears some markings on it. Louisville Cardinals, something along those lines?
Louisville, yes.
Okay. And that was submitted to you for examination?
That's correct.
Now, one of the examinations you made, you looked for some type of a defect in that hat that would indicate to you that it was a bullet hole. Is that correct?
Yes.
And did you make that examination? And if so, what did you find?
Yes, I did. And I found an obvious
bullet hole in the side of the cap.
When you say obvious, what things did you observe on that, at the site of that hole or defect that indicated to you was an obvious bullet hole?
Besides the hole in and of itself, there was a small area of what we perceive as lead wiping, basically a little dark, kind of grayish ring, as well as those obvious gunpowder particles that I could observe both visually and microscopically.
On the hat at the site of that defect?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is there any way you can look at that hat and seeing what you saw, you do test fires again from 8.0, the handgun, and tell how far that hat was from the barrel of the weapon when it was fired at the hat?
Yes, again, that's a routine examination in the laboratory. And so what we're going to be doing is test firing the gun, taking those test fired targets, looking at the deposits of residues, and determining, basically we give an estimate. We don't typically, unless there's special circumstances, an exact distance, but rather an estimate of approximate distance, how far the barrel was away, the gun was away when it was fired.
So you make a series of test fires, getting closer or further so you can get the same pattern of those gunshot residues?
Yes, basically what we're looking for are gunpowder particles, whether burnt, partially burnt, unburnt gunpowder particles, lead, vaporous lead, kind of patterns of lead, that sort of thing. So we're looking at two different things to help us determine, generally speaking, how far the gun was away when it was fired.
And obviously in making this distance determination, you would have to have the weapon that was suspected of firing toward that target. Would that be fair?
Yes, typically you're going to need the exact gun, similar ammunition, that sort of thing.
And you had all that in this case, is that correct?
That's correct.
In the test fires and distance determinations that you made in this case, were you able to form an opinion as to the distance this hat was from the muzzle or end of the barrel of that firearm 8.0 when it was fired at the hat?
Yes.
And what is that opinion, sir?
And it was an approximate estimate of around a foot or greater in less than 2 feet, based if you looked at, try to duplicate the residue patterns.
So approximately 1 foot, but not more than 2 feet from the hat?
Based on the powder residues, that would be consistent with my tests. That would be correct.
Okay. Judge, may I have a second, please?
Take your time.
No further questions. Thank you.
Cross.
Mr. Ladic, when you test fired that weapon, did you experience any recoil?
Certainly. It would normally recoil every time you shoot it, yes.
And can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what recoil is?
Certainly. It would be the energy. If you can imagine, when you fire this gun, and you pull the trigger, that gun's going to go off, and that slide's going to come back, and it comes back with some force. I mean, that's why you have to grip the gun typically, pretty forcefully. But it would be that energy of that slide coming back and then stopping before it returns forward to pick up a cartridge from the magazine.
Was the recoil significant enough that it threw you off balance or moved you from where you discharged the weapon?
No, but I'm typically prepared when I'm firing in the range for that.
Would you expect that someone who was familiar with that weapon and trained with it would not experience recoil that would knock them off balance?
Depending on the circumstances, if they're shooting at a range, yes, that would be correct.
Okay. Are you familiar with the term trigger pull?
Yes, I am.
What does that mean?
That's the amount of energy that you have to put or apply to this trigger of this gun in order to get it to fire, in order to get that gun to shoot.
And with reference to the Sig Sauer Model P320, do you know what the trigger pull is on that?
I actually tested that in the laboratory, and if I can refer to my notes, I believe it was testing approximately between 6.5 to 6 3/4 pounds, as you normally would in a vertical state.
And how does that compare with any other type of handgun?
It's not uncommon for a trigger pull of a semi-automatic design like this. It's We'll see. Well, they'll range depending on, some guns are very light, what we call light, where it's a very reduced trigger pull, and some even go up quite a bit higher than that. So I would say mid-range.
Okay. And how about the, you indicated that your test with the hat indicated that the muzzle of the gun was greater than 1 foot but less than 2 feet from the head of Samuel DuBose, correct?
I think I said, yes, 1 foot or greater. So you could include 1 foot. 1 foot or greater, but out to 2 feet, a little less than 2 feet.
So it was not in contact with Mr. DuBose, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And would you agree with me that an automobile can also be a deadly weapon if used in a manner in which it could inflict injury or death?
He's not a mechanic, he's a firearms examiner.
Restate the question if you can answer it, we'll allow it. Go ahead.
I asked if he would agree with me that that an automobile can also, just as he testified that weapon is a deadly weapon, could an automobile be a deadly weapon?
If you're able to answer that.
Common sense would certainly tell you that, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, what is are you familiar with the term or phrase hair trigger?
Yes.
Tell the jurors what a hair trigger is.
That's typically a trigger that either through design, through manipulation, in other words, people working on it, or even a defect, gives the trigger a very, very, very light amount of pressure that has to be applied to it before it actually fires the gun. Sometimes you can get trigger pulls to be around a pound or under. Typically, it's going to depend on the gun, but typically you see that a lot in certain revolvers.
And it's so light that you have to be careful not to fire it inadvertently, correct, when you have a hair trigger?
That'd be correct.
All right. This certainly was not a hair trigger in your estimation, is that correct?
No, it would be basically what the factory would design it
Thanks,
to be.
sir. That's all I have, Judge.
Any more questions? Is this witness released? Any objection? Very good. Thank you, sir, for your time. You are free to leave the building. Thank you. You can leave all the evidence there, of course. Just give us one moment, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a good opportunity to take our break for the morning. Remember, do not discuss this case among yourselves. Do not allow anyone to discuss it with you. Do not form or express an opinion on the case until finally submitted to you, and do not do any independent research. All rise for the jury.
I'm on serious delay out here. My fault, or I'd have been sitting here. Yeah, no. How long do we have here? I'm ready. Are you ready? Well, good morning as we are live once again outside the Hamilton County Courthouse as we have continuing coverage of the Ray Tenzing murder trial. He is the former University of Cincinnati police officer that is now being charged with murder in the case of Sam DuBose. This event happening some 16 months ago. It is a case that has drawn national attention, hence why we're giving you gavel-to-gavel coverage as we continue to be dedicated and committed to the sequence of events as it's happening here at the Hamilton County Courthouse. We're in a morning recess right now as the trial resumes shortly after 9 o'clock this morning after really a weekend full of a lot of expectations coming into here on this day, on this Monday. So let's recap what happened on Friday when there was a recess shortly at around 11:20 and then the jury didn't come back out. One of the jurors dismissed herself. It was an alternate juror here this morning out of concerns of their personality or their name being recognized as a result of some of the media companies here, including ours, asking for some of the jury questionnaires. So the Inquirer, the local newspaper here, redacted or withdrew their information, their request for the questionnaires. We, WCPO, are the only station that continued with our request from the redacted information. We are not interested in any type of juror identity, just the fact that the questions and some of their answers is a public information request on our part. The judge ruled on that this morning, saying that that would not be granted. She is not going to release the questionnaires, and the trial resumed, and that was that. The gag order was put in place on Friday from both the prosecution and the defense, not able to talk to the media afterwards, and that will continue in place as I understand it here this morning. Once the trial resumed, things got going quickly. In fact, we've ripped through 5 witnesses at this point, mostly criminologists and expert testimony and some of the evidence that was collected that day. A couple of things that was of note were the clothing that was selected and some pictures that were taken in as evidence of Mr. Tenzing while he was at the hospital from one Cincinnati police officer. At that point. The other thing is how much marijuana was in the car. We knew from opening statements from the prosecutor, Joe Dieters, that there was going to be some marijuana in the car. He admitted to that. It's funny, one of our legal analysts admitting a bad fact about the case. And we found out that it was more than 200 grams. So it's interesting. I looked it up in the Colorado dispensaries on what that value is. So more than 200 grams, a little more than 7 ounces. And its dispensary value, that's anywhere between $1,400 to $1,500, $1,700 worth of value to a Colorado dispensary, Denver Metro. Looking at the laws in the state of Ohio, so what is that punishable by? I just looked it up literally just a few moments ago. So more than 200 grams to 1,000 grams is roughly up to a $2,500 fine and up to a year in jail or both in that case. So it was a considerable amount from that standpoint. That would be what would be punishable by law in the state of Ohio. That was admitted by one of the evidence individuals that was collecting evidence the day of the shooting some 16 months ago. The other thing we've been listening to is the firearms expert there. So again, the trial's starting to pick up pace. It was interesting. The prosecutor, Joe Dieters in this case, stating before the trial was going to start that he believed that the whole entire length of the trial would be about a week to a week and a half. We're entering now the second week. This is day 5 of testimony, as it literally opening statements were last Tuesday now, and things are going rather smoothly and quickly here. Outside the courthouse, it's been a really calm but yet busy day out here. The lines literally wrapped around the block here throughout the morning process, as it took a couple of minutes for individuals to get inside. They went through the usual metal detectors. Most of that was just from the general busyness of the court today. Right now, I misspoke. I tweeted a couple of minutes ago at Riva WCPO that there's been no presence of any demonstrators. There is now one demonstrator who's been rather vocal out here throughout the course of the morning. The demonstrator is now once again representing the Black Lives Matter movement, as they said. And it was interesting, when I talked to them last week, we had a demonstrator that was actually cited as he crossed the street last week for jaywalking or some type of offense like that. He was temporarily detained from his standpoint, which caused a bit of frenzy from us out here, but it sparked a conversation I had a lot with a lot of the demonstrators here. They were very stern in making sure that I understood that they represent themselves only, and various different agencies. They also continued to state that they only represent the idea of Black Lives Matter Cincinnati, not necessarily the organization. It's not an organization. It is an idea and a movement, they continuously said. They have been peaceful. They've been relatively calm. At times they've chanting like they're chanting right now. It's literally just one individual that's outside the courthouse. Other than that, it's been business as usual. From the standpoint of the police presence, we've seen some more sheriff's cars here. In fact, there's one parked across the street that we haven't seen throughout the course of this proceeding. But the bike cops have been around and really not is in full force that we have seen in recent days. But once again, it's rather calm and very peaceful here at the Hamilton County Courthouse. So let's reset the day. We're in a quick recess, the morning recess, from the standpoint the jury getting a little bit of a break after hearing testimony. And at times I don't want to know if tedious is the right word, but it was some inside baseball, if you will. It was a lot of criminologists explaining their process of gathering their evidence and then kind of breaking down what some of those things means. We saw an individual that works on modeling and the model that was designed of the crime scene, or the scene, I should say, that day. And then now we're hearing from a firearms expert, just literally heard from a firearms expert. Some of the witnesses have been through in a matter of minutes, others taking about 15 to 20 minutes at this point. And again, it just kind of continues on with what was transpiring on Friday before the recess ended the day at 11:30. So once again, the ruling initially right off the bat went back to the questionnaires and some of the media's request to get the questionnaires for the jurors. This jury had a pool of roughly 195 people last Monday that was whittled down to the jury pool with 4 alternates. One of the alternates dismissed herself today. According to the judge, she was concerned about her safety and her identity being revealed, if anything else. The judge also chastised some of the local media, saying that some of our reports since that time on Friday about what happened Friday and over the weekend weren't accurate. She didn't elaborate much more than that and said she wanted to get to the matter at hand. The one ruling that she did lay down at the start of the day is that none of the questionnaires will be released, redacted or otherwise, from that standpoint. The only media agency that left its request in was us, WCPO, and talking to our managers, one of the reasons behind that we put in the request in the first place was just to understand not only the questions that were being asked, but more about the individuals that were answering those questions and are seated on the jury. We did not specifically request any type of identities from those individuals. We were more curious about the questions and the answers. That's strictly what it was. From that standpoint, though, in talking to our management team here, it doesn't look like, now that the ruling's been laid down, there's much more else we will do or persist in that request this morning. But that was one of the first things that was laid down. Then we immediately got to business. As we mentioned, we had 5 different people testify, witnesses, most of them criminologists at this point, and the evidence gatherers that happened that day some 16 months ago now. So we're into the testimony. We're expecting to hear at some point one of the witnesses to take the stand, potentially went from the coroner's office, maybe some pictures of Mr. DuBose from that day after the shooting. We have seen some pictures introduced into the evidence from the standpoint they were just Mr. Tensing, who was at the hospital after he was being evaluated by the medical examiners, and of course the beginning of the Cincinnati Police Department's investigation and the evidence gathering from that process. A couple of things of note there, and I've seen basically inter-office email on that. Some of those pictures, and you might have seen that if you're logging on to WCPO.com or watching on the Facebook page, some of those pictures could be graphic in nature. We may potentially only take the audio portion during that time, or just literally shift the camera. Potentially the camera might shift to just the wall, as you've seen throughout the day, just for our concerns from the standpoint that we are streaming live on our website at WCPO.com and the Facebook page, and if they're too graphic to see, we will make that determination just to go to the audio or not. So that might be what you might see in the coming hours. A gag order has been put in place as of Friday. And it's funny, when we were talking to some of the legal analysts to this might be maybe the prosecution and the defense might think that this is a good thing, or might have been in agreement with the judge from that standpoint, because every day after the proceedings would wrap up here at the Hamilton County Courthouse, they would be answering questions question by question of basically witness testimony and everybody that was involved from that standpoint. That might be a welcome reprieve. With it, that's our job. That's what we're doing here. That's our continued commitment to bringing you coverage, gavel to gavel, from this standpoint, to get their analysis and their thoughts and impressions as each day goes on here throughout the Ray Tensing trial. Coming up today at noon, we'll recap what we have seen so far here at the Hamilton County Courthouse. We'll also have legal analysis from Rodney Harris, who is with the Public Defender's Office, about his take on the proceedings as they're happening so far this morning, and really what all of this means, if some of this is setting up some more testimony later in the week or even later today. We are expecting now, at some point this week, we believe that Mr. Tensing himself, once the defense gets their portion of the case, will take the stand, and that will be an interesting sequence of events, because when we were talking to Mr. Hawkins last week, he said that might be one of the biggest things and elements of this case is when Mr. Tensing testifies, because he's scheduled to at this point on his behalf. Also today at noon, we'll also take a recap at the judge's ruling right before the proceedings started today as well. So once again, we're into week 2 now of the murder trial of Ray Tensing, the former University of Cincinnati police officer who's accused in the shooting death of Samuel DuBose. And testimony continued today, where we've seen 5 witnesses so far. Another moment we have seen is walking into the courthouse this morning, Mr. DuBose's family here, his mother, Audrey DuBose, walked in with several family members who were inside the courtroom, as well as Mr. Tensing's family. It was interesting. It's the first day, maybe the second day, that I've noticed that the prosecution team, which typically about 20 to 9, walks into the courthouse. They walked in separately today. Mr. Dieters walked in with a team of 3, as he typically is walking with a team of 5 to 7. And then it was Mr. Petmeyer and Mr. Gibson walking in by themselves about 5 minutes afterwards. Perhaps they were working on some of their questioning in which their witnesses were going to explain today. So we'll continue to bring you gavel-to-gavel coverage throughout this continued trial. We'll have complete live updates for you on WCPO Not on Your Side starting at 4 o'clock today. My colleague Tanya O'Rourke will take over out here outside of the steps of the courthouse. And Tom McKee is inside. Allie Kramer is inside. There are 2 reporters that are covering it from the television side, and then our journalist from WCPO.com is Libby Weaver. She is inside as well. She is continuing to tweet, so it'll be at Libby WCPO. Allie Kramer's on Twitter as well, and then Tom McKee is also following the proceedings as well. So as we continue to bring you updated coverage, we're expecting this recess to last about 20 to 30 minutes. As we anticipated on Friday, that's how long it would last, and from that standpoint, we presume that witness testimony will continue along with the prosecution. You can stream it on our website at WCPO.com, which you might be likely doing now, or on the Facebook Live as well, as we continue to bring you the latest updates. Right now, it's a beautiful day, as the nice weather has returned after a very cold morning outside the Hamilton County Courthouse. The demonstrators, there's all of one at this point, who has been very vocal to this point throughout the day. In fact, I can see he's right over my shoulders. Dwayne Slavey, our photographer, is pointing the cameras over there. And Dwayne, if you keep going, typically it is right on this corner right here at the corner of Court and Main Street that we see really just a small army of bicycle police officers from the Cincinnati Police Department. But as of Friday, they got to be a little bit less stationary, and they started moving around the courthouse more and more. We've seen them out in smaller numbers. Across the street, right there, you can see the sheriff's vehicle. There has been a little bit more presence of the sheriff's department here, but once again, things are secure, calm, and orderly outside at Main and Court Street here at the Hamilton County Courthouse. Pretty calm day. It was a busy start to the day from the standpoint of the courthouse on a Monday, as the lines literally wrapped around to where the vantage point that you see here. Took a few minutes to get inside the courthouse, but everybody was able to get in an orderly fashion and resume their typical business day here. That's what we will continue to do, is we will continue to stream this proceedings for you on WCPO.com as well as our Facebook page. And then coming up today again at noon, we'll have legal analysis of what we have seen so far, really what it means from the standpoint. At times, they were going point by point with some of the articles of clothing that were gathered at the scene that day, as well as photos from the scene, even modeling from the scene. We've heard from the Hamilton County Coroner's Office. We've also heard from several Cincinnati police officers as well. So we're in a short recess, at least we believe so, to this point from the proceedings. We'll continue to bring it to you as it occurs, gavel to gavel, right here on WCPO.com. Let's reset the day. If you're just joining us or just tuning in, we're in that recess we were mentioning about. There was a quick ruling judged by the questionnaires from the jury questionnaires. Several media outlets initially on Friday requested those questionnaires The Enquirer withdrew its request midday, concerned that they did not want to have any types of stall, delay, or even potential mistrial as a result of their request from the questionnaires. Now, we, along with other media outlets, continued our request. This morning, that request was denied. The judge says she is not going to allow, that's Judge Megan Shanahan in this case, any of those questionnaires to get out of her concerns of jury identities being leaked out or just jury safety in that matter. From that standpoint, the ruling was made this morning and witness testimony continued. That witness testimony we're expecting, as the prosecution continues to lay out its case, will happen as soon as this recess is wrapping up. So as you can see, that's kind of the story that's going on right now. Like you, we're waiting for the process to continue to resume here at the Hamilton County Courthouse. It's interesting. One of the things, if we recap also, is I'm thinking about this before we go back, if you're just joining us, other things that we saw this morning, some of the evidence gathered at the scene from Mr. Tensing himself and then Mr. DeBose. A couple of things that have been really highly publicized in this case since the opening statements were that Mr. DeBose had a bottle, it labeled a gin in it. There was no alcohol inside that. Also, the marijuana found. We found it was a little more than 200 grams of marijuana that was found in the car. That, punishable by Ohio law, would be something up to a year in jail and about a $2,500 fine. They're still in recess. That's all the update that we have for you here at the courthouse steps. We'll be live for you today at noon on WCPO's 9 on your side. We'll have legal analysis. Thanks for tuning in to our Facebook Live, and we'll continue to stream it gavel to gavel as soon as witness testimony and the prosecution continues on with their case up in room 560 here at the Hamilton County Courthouse. Until then, we're just going to toss it back to the stream, and once things proceed, we'll continue to bring it to you right here. Thanks for tuning in.